When talking about video games in 2020, the conversation naturally goes to the PlayStation 5, the Xbox One, the Nintendo Switch, and notice that all of this has one thing in common, which is the big screen, high definition. But growing up, a lot of us love to play games on the go, whether it be the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Advance SP, just grabbing that thing on the go, especially when for the very first time it had a beautiful, sexy backlit screen. But now in 2020, that we have something like the Nintendo Switch that is a hybrid of playing things on your television and on the go. The sad question is, do we need a new handheld in 2020 and beyond? We're going to be talking about that right now on another exciting episode of A Cast of the Past, coming at you each and every Sunday with yours truly, Juan Velas from Puerto Rico. Joining me from Boston, Massachusetts, we have one Ryan McNulty. Now, in your case, Ryan, when is the last time, be real with me, when's the last time you actually played a handheld gaming device that is not the Nintendo Switch?
Well, that is a bit of a different question for me, because for quite a while I did stream Pokemon. So yeah. I was, and this is pre Switch Pokemon, so I was playing my 3DS a lot. So I would say probably almost a year ago was the last time I played my 3DS. Actually, less than that. I do play some Zelda games on my 3DS as well. So I'm a little bit different because I'm a Nintendo nerd, and I'll go back and I'll play Ocarina of Time 3D and A Link Between Worlds and things like that. So I'd probably say sometime in 2019, late 2019. But that's still, a number of months ago, to be fair.
Yeah, I think that as more games come out to like the Nintendo Switch, as you mentioned, maybe because you didn't have like a main Pokemon game on the Switch, then you were kind of forced, right, to have that. But maybe if more games come out there, then the desire to play games on the go is lessened. And we do want to clarify, because Ryan pointed this out after we recorded the episode last time, which is Keith Hamilton is not here. When I say he's battling the pandemic, he is physically going out there in a war, defeating that sexy, or not so sexy necessarily, COVID-19, but he's okay. He's healthy. He's staying at home. That's what matters. Also sexy. You know who's sexy, Ryan? All the people in our Discord community.
Oh, good point. Yes, yeah. Indeed.
Who do you think I was going to talk about?
I don't know. I was ready for somebody random, so.
Yeah, but people, we do have a Discord over at acastofthepast.com/Discord. These two back-to-back episodes were made possible because of all the people there, so thank you so much. And as always, if you enjoy the podcast, you can subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/acastofthepast. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and all of that stuff. And in my case, it's pretty sad. So right now, I have a Nintendo 3DS XL. I have a PS Vita, like an Assassin's Creed version. And last year, Ryan, I had this like really sad realization that I think I'm just done playing handheld. So I went to New York, right? I went to New York, had my 3DS, and I had a couple of times where I just wanted to sit down, not walk. I was walking all day. I pull out the 3DS when I have games that I love for it, and I realized man, this looks so much better on my monitor or on my television. I was playing Shovel Knight. I also have it on Switch, and I realized I think I'm done. I think in this stage of my life, I love just playing games on my big TV or at home. I think because we got older and we have all these responsibilities, to me, playing video games is like this soothing experience. And I get that experience at home, which now it's different because I'm also working from home, so not very different. What about you when you go back? What are some of the handhelds that you've owned?
I've owned almost at least one iteration of every Nintendo handheld. So I had a Game Boy, original Game Boy, but it was like the fat green one. And then I also had a Game Boy. I don't think I ever had straight up Game Boy Color, but I did then have the OG Game Boy Advance. And then I had DS Lights, and then 3DS, and of course Switch, which is the hybrid. So I've had at least kind of one iteration of each generation of a Nintendo handheld. Never owned any other thing. I never had a Game Gear or PS Vita or PSP or anything like that.
Okay. In my case, I remember I first had a red Game Boy, like the original Game Boy, but red with Pokemon Red because I was a mark for that. I also had a purple Game Boy Color. Afterwards, I had a Game Boy Pocket, which I bought for $20 with Pokemon Blue. The fact that's like there's something about handhelds that I have such a vivid memory. Then I had the blue, the purple Game Boy Advance, the original one with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. That was my first GBA game.
Oh yeah.
Then I had the Game Boy Advance SP, and man, the silver one. Which one did you have?
Well, I never had a SP. I never had an SP.
Right.
And
wait, never?
that
I thought
no,
you
I
eventually.
didn't.
Oh wow.
And yeah, no, that was one of the ones I didn't play a ton of the GBA era, to be honest. And I had the original, it was a white GBA original model. But God, that thing was such terrible design compared to the SP. The SP is so much better. And, I played, friends had it, so I'd play on theirs. But yeah, I was kind of, yeah, that's the one picture in the video version. Yeah, that is the one that I had. And yeah, it's garbage compared to the SP. So I wish I owned it, but I eventually just got a DS Lite, and then it had the GBA slot, so I could play any GBA games. Like I got Pokemon Fire Red, and you can play that just fine.
So I think that if we're trying to address the question of do we need a handheld in 2020, let's switch over to, well, no pun intended, the Switch. When you thought about, you're like a Super Nintendo freak, right? Not just because of your background. I've known you since we were 14 years old, and Nintendo has always been your bread and butter. So when you found out the Nintendo Switch was going to be a hybrid, handheld, and television-based console, what was your reaction on that?
I was pretty blown away that you would be able to play console level games handheld. Like we knew Wii U was kind of like the first step to that, where okay, I'm playing a console game, it's in a handheld, but I can't like drive
you have a limit.
10 miles down the street and still play it, so I was very blown away by it, and I loved the concept because I did like, in theory, what they were going with for Wii U, because I can very much relate to, sometimes I want to have something on the TV and I can just sit, someone else can also watch TV with me, but I can sit here and play my game and everyone's happy, right? I'm playing my game, they're using the TV, I can still look up and watch it too. And I don't feel like I'm ever like stealing the living room away from someone or whatever. But hey, if I have the living room to myself, I can dock it and I can play it on the big TV, things like that. So I loved the option of it, so that it's handheld when you want it to be. And I think that is just the best combination of a system.
And I believe that as a kid, that was maybe the dream, because you think about something like Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo, Mortal Kombat on the Game Boy. They're both technically Mortal Kombat, but one of them sucks really hard.
Yeah, it was always that lesser version. I mean, I think Pokemon was the only case where like you're like, no, the handheld version is the version. But most other games you were like, okay, if I play Donkey Kong Country on my Super Nintendo, it's so awesome. But then I go and play Donkey Kong Land on the Game Boy, and you're like, it's kind of like Donkey Kong, but just not quite as good.
So in your case now, we are both Switch owners. You and Keith play a lot of Animal Crossing. I'm going to be hopefully getting into Animal Crossing soon, because people like, as of this recording, I was able to buy a Nintendo Switch now, like during the pandemic. Thank you, GameStop. And not a Nintendo Switch Lite, a regular ass Switch. I'm so proud of this journey. It only took me
I'm
like
impressed.
2 months.
I was even trying to look into PS4s, and even that's really hard to find right now. It's insane.
Super difficult. So considering we've been using the Nintendo Switch extensively, so you've had the chance of using it, either portable or on television. When you think about, let's say Nintendo announced the Nintendo 4DS, or Sony announced the brand new PSP, Sega announced a Dreamcast Mini, something that's on the go. Knowing that there is the hybrid potential of something like Switch, would you be excited? Do you think that's something we actually need, or do you think we're kind of at a point where the hybrid is the way to go?
I mean, I think the hybrid is the way to go now that the capabilities there, and Nintendo's proved it. And yeah, I don't really see any way of going back. I mean, the only other thing we have really, and this is another reason why we're not seeing as many handhelds, is like the mobile gaming has really kind of taken over for a lot of the handheld space, right? I mean, most of the mobile games are, they're not, you don't see a lot of like platformers and stuff on mobile games these days. I mean, I guess you could, but they're a little bit more simplistic, I would say, because, mobile games with like the face buttons just being
Well,
like
not even
buttons on the
necessarily,
screen.
because you have Apple Arcade. Apple Arcade, I don't know if you
Very
know what it
true.
is. You pay like $5 a month, and you can even plug in your PS4, your Xbox controller. So they're trying to like straight up go after the console
Yeah,
market.
that's very true. And that's a good point. And that might be kind of the next era, I guess, of technically handhelds. I think the mobile market has definitely changed the game, and that's why Sony doesn't seem to be looking to get back into the market, at least that I've seen. I mean, you can just look at, Juan had brought up the sales figures of looking at PSP at 82 million sales versus the Vita at 13 million. You can see why
Yeah.
we haven't heard an announcement of another portable system. I mean, that's an astounding drop off. But Nintendo, coupled with the fact that they did sort of this hybrid, Nintendo is very protective of its property, and it's like if you want to play Nintendo characters and Nintendo games, you need a Nintendo system, and that's always been their thing. Other companies may not be able to have the same luxury when they rely on third parties for a lot of their games. So they may not be going in, they may not have the luxury of being able to just release a handheld system and have people instantly want to play it because they may not have those system selling games.
I think there's going to be a point in time where they do make a comeback somewhat. Like right now, something that's making a big, not return, but I guess people are trying to adjust are these mini systems. Like, I'm not talking about the Super Nintendo Classic. The Neo Geo Mini is a good example where it's like a tiny Neo Geo arcade, but you can play it like with a small stick. Have you actually seen this?
No.
Let me actually look it up so I can get. We're gonna get Ryan's live reaction at the Neo Geo Mini. It's the most adorable thing. So here it is. So for
Oh,
those
whoa. It's
that
like, yeah, it's like a little arcade
yeah,
thing.
like it's like a tiny screen with a tiny joystick, four buttons, but you can also plug it to the television and play via HDMI out, and you can plug in controller. So it's technically portable ish. Doesn't necessarily fit in your
Can you put
pocket.
in games, or is it each one
No,
has one game?
it comes with pre-built games. So it comes with
Okay.
pre-built games, and I think that's the thing. Ultimately, when you look at sales figures like the Nintendo DS sold 154 million. The Game Boy and the Game Boy Color collectively sold 118 million. 118 million, okay? PSP 82, Game Boy Advance 81 million. Now, when you look at something like the Super Nintendo, 49 million. I think the ultimate thing as to why companies are going to try and figure out a way to get into that mobile market, even in a nostalgic sense, is price, portability, and affordability. Like right now, when you think about Raspberry Pi, these tiny computers that I have one, that tiny thing can run PS1, N64, and it costs less than $60. So I think that there's the same way we've had the Super Nintendo Classic. Imagine that Nintendo announced a Game Boy Advance SP Classic with 20 pre-built games. Honestly, I wouldn't give a damn how much that cost. I'm just gonna buy it. I'm like, hey, sign me up, sign me up.
It would depend. I'd still, I don't, I'm a little iffy on the pre-built games thing. I'd probably buy an N64 Classic just because I don't really have, I actually have a couple N64 games. I don't even have the system
Yeah.
anymore. So I'd probably go for an N64 Classic. That might be my one exception. But in the case of like SP or something, I'd rather just buy one, or I still have my DS Lite, and I just buy the games I want for it. I don't, even though most of the collections can be good, I don't like the idea of just being like, these are the only games I ever get to have, and I
Well,
can't
I
ever go
mean,
outside of it.
you can make some
Yeah, but if you gotta
modifications.
do some illegal crap. So
Yeah, no, I think that one of the other reasons that there's a need When I bought the Vita, this is when I realized it. So the Vita, I think, is going to be one of those consoles or handhelds that in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, people will look back at the PSP and the Vita as some of the most underrated gaming devices of all time because when
It's
you
like a
look at
Wii
the
U situation.
yeah, but because thanks to the Wii U, we got the Switch, but we never got anything past the Vita in terms of build quality, performance. Like, sure, Sony sucked at just marketing it, the memory card, but the fact that it was the most console equivalent thing on the go was impressive. But here's the challenge. That's when I realized that as much as maybe as we were when we were kids, we would complain that, oh, we're getting the portable version of a game. Like if you bought a Game Boy Advance version of a game, as opposed to like Prince of Persia on the PS2, it wasn't the same game. Maybe we saw that as a problem, but the Vita showed me maybe that's good because when I'm playing games on the go, I'm playing games 5, 10 minutes, like train stops and all that. When you get like a full blown console game, I think that's like an investment that if I want like a really deep story, I want to be at home for that. So I think that's also one of the markets that when you make a thing that is exclusively made for handheld as opposed to something like the Switch, I think developers and publishers have to think, okay, so people are not playing this game the same way they would like a console game, right?
Yeah, no, that's a very good way to look at it. And I think even Nintendo might have had that in mind with even a game like Breath of the Wild, right? For the Nintendo Switch, thinking people might be playing it more on the go. I think it's no coincidence that, that you have all the shrines that are kind of like one-off puzzles where it's like you can really kind of break up your gameplay into much smaller chunks than you would a traditional Zelda dungeon, which might take you an hour to complete. And I think, and that's even Nintendo Switch, which has the option to be a console, like thinking that style. But a lot of those other games, a lot of games like Tetris or the very popular mobile games or handheld games were designed to be played in more chunks. Like, okay, I can play one level, or it's a game like Pokemon where if the train stop happens, I don't have to like, oh God, like just about to do this big jump or something. No, your character can just sit there and do nothing and you're not going to lose or whatever, or you're in a battle. Nothing's going to progress until you choose an attack or something. So, handheld games are definitely designed differently. So that's something that they have to keep in mind. You can't just do the hybrid and just have everything be a straight up console game because it doesn't necessarily always translate to you wanting to play on the go.
And it's also on the other way. It could in many ways be limiting because Breath of the Wild was also technically a Wii U game, much like Twilight Princess was also a hybrid, GameCube Wii game. But it does beg the question, we're getting Breath of the Wild 2, and that's a Nintendo Switch game. I mean, who knows? Maybe it also comes out on the other console, but it's like, could you imagine if the way the game was designed changed if Nintendo was like, no, this game is meant to be played on the big screen, on the television. So maybe we'll never see imagine you as a big time Zelda fan, would it maybe scare you like, oh, so hybrid is good that you get the best of both worlds, but at the same time, maybe there is like that ceiling that from a development standpoint, games are like, oh, but what if the battery's running low and they can't unplug, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll see. I think they could find ways around it. And me even thinking like they were developing this originally for the Wii U, so it may not have been a complete handheld design mindset. I think it happened. It may have just happened to work in that way. So I think, and even if they want to do long dungeons, they could always do some sort of save points to make it be able to be consumed in bite sizes and stuff. I know they would find a way around it if they wanted to be a little bit more ambitious with things like dungeons. So, yeah, I think in some aspects, Switch, like they have their games that are more handheld focused and they have their games that are more console focused. I mean, they put Dark Souls on the Switch, right? So in that game, you can't play it handheld for the most part, right? The controls just don't really work. You really need the Pro controller to really appreciate it. So I think there's just kind of, hey, you can go in the store, you can play a game like Hollow Knight that's really good for on the go. But then if you want to play Dark Souls, it's better to wait till you get home. So they might just kind of play it that way. And it's good to have those options.
I think the answer for me is that maybe from 2020 onward, look, we got so many games on the GBA. I don't know. Could you check up just how many games we got on the Game Boy Advance in comparison to the Super Nintendo? While you check that, I think that many of us, there were so many portable games coming out each and every week to the point that maybe we played like 5-10% of a video game library. I want to bring up something called the Analog Pocket. So this
Looks
is almost like
1505, 1,505 games for the
for
Game
the
Boy
GBA?
Advance. Yes.
Okay, and now check out how many we got for the Super Nintendo. Meanwhile, so Analog is this boutique company that makes like these hardware-based FPGA consoles. So instead of emulation, this is like 100% accurate. They've done things for the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, but they're expensive.
1757. Sorry to interrupt, but
How much?
1757, but only 717 were released in North America.
So think about that, right? So how many more games did we get on the Game Boy Advance in the grand scheme of things? Plus, we also got like exclusive RPGs. We got a lot of platformers. But then you have something like the Analog Pocket that looks to, and this is not a sponsor, by the way. It's just like this is what motivates me nowadays with portable gaming. It's like you can actually put in your physical Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance cartridges, and the screen is 10 times the resolution of the original actual handheld. Like crisp, clean screen. Say that 10 times in a row. Crisp,
clean screen.
See, it's a
you have to think
twister.
about it. Yeah,
you got to think about it.
That's tough.
So you can also HDMI out that thing, and I think a lot of people are saying, "Hey, when are we going to get the Game Boy Advance Mini?" I think there's going to be a nice blend of nostalgia going forward, mixed with also like, hey, it's nice to have a device that can be taken on the go, but the HDMI option has to be there. I think the real takeaway with the Nintendo Switch is whatever comes out now, it has got to have that option that maybe you want to plug in that to a monitor. I think there is a market for maybe you don't want to take a Switch that's like, at the end of the day, the Switch is portable, but it's not nearly as portable as a Game Boy Advance SP. Imagine you had something the size of an SP while you're traveling, staying at a hotel, but you can take out that HDMI out, plug it into the TV. I mean, that would be damn impressive and definitely like a nice combination.
Yeah, that would definitely be ideal, and I'd love to see something like that. The more options we have, the better, really. And yeah, I mean, I think there is room in that capacity for, whether it be nostalgia focused. There is room for those handhelds, but it is tough to see outside of a sort of retro machine that we're going to see, Microsoft or Sony jump into it, where I think, the mobile market is really kind of taking that space, and even things like the cloud gaming, right? You might be able to play these games on your phone and, just through the cloud services. So it's almost really replacing handhelds in some way there too. So there's a lot of different things that are kind of changing the market. So, the 3DS could really be the last straight up, handheld device coming from a main, game company.
Yeah, I'd sadly have to agree with that. I've used Project xCloud, and I went from going like, I don't give a damn about cloud gaming to holy crap, maybe not now, but this is without question the future of gaming. The accessibility of that and the fact that you can play a full-blown console game without downloading it on almost any type of phone really does show the potential for that. But everybody watching and listening, we really would love to carry this conversation over to the Discord, because I feel like we are maybe one of the last generations that can really talk about this, because most kids nowadays, when they think like the other day I was streaming and I was talking about the Game Boy Advance SP, and the person was saying like, oh, my dad used to play that. I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm talking about the Game Boy Advance, like not the Game Boy. The person's dad, the Game Boy Advance SP. So it's like this ancient device. I think it's like our radio. Oh my, okay. Could handhelds be like our generation's radio? I mean, radio's still relevant, but
the radio is still a thing, but like a record player.
Record player, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, record player. That's the thing. It's like,
but even that's kind of come back a little bit.
That's the thing, Ryan. Thank you. That's the thing. The portable gaming can be our vinyl records.
Yeah,
vinyl records are a thing now.
They are.
Again.
Yeah, no, like they'll be hipsters with their, with their fat Game Boys, playing Tetris. So,
at some point in our lives, Ryan, especially with the pandemic and all that, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I want between you, Keith, or something, till I just go to a place, 3 Game Boys, link cables, at least between 2 of us.
Oh my God.
Just play like the original gray Game Boy and just like recording people's reactions. I feel like that would be fascinating too.
We should dress like we're in the 80s too. We should just be time travelers.
Yes. People,
I want a brick cell phone too.
Oh my goodness. That was actually my first we should talk about cell phones on a future episode.
Yeah.
I actually like that idea. So if somebody would like to listen to that, please don't be afraid to reach us out on social media, A Cast of the Past on Twitter. You can also send us an email, acastofthepast@gmail.com. Check out the Discord. Once again, A Cast of the Past. That's a lot of pasting. A lot of acastofthepast.com/Discord. Ryan, anything else? Like we're doing all the plugs. Anything else you want to plug?
Check out Player Juan. Okay, check out Juan's channel. All right,
oh my goodness,
it's great stuff. I mean, I think a lot of people have discovered, this podcast from Juan's channel. But if you happen to have discovered us first and you haven't checked out Juan's channel, look up Player Juan on YouTube. There's even a section on our Discord to discuss everything with Player Juan, and he also streams on Twitch, right?
Yeah, and speaking of, I'm actually gonna wait till this episode comes out so that way people know. Something that I do every couple of weeks on my Twitch channel is called Retro Reads. So naturally, and this podcast was completely the inspiration for this, like the shift. So I love that it's all kind of becoming just one big community, is that we just naturally talk about the 90s and 2000s. And for me, video game magazines were like that thing. So I'm going to post a picture of this on Twitter when the episode comes out. But for those on the video version, I was showing this to Ryan, that this came in just yesterday for me, which is a 1999 handheld video games Game Pro special magazine. And on the cover, it says the preview for Pokemon Yellow, the first look for Pokemon Gold and Silver, talks about the Neo Geo Pocket, the Gamecom, and all that stuff. So what I do with Retro Reads is I actually put a top-down camera, and I just show the magazine, and we just take a read on it. We take a look.
And he opens an artifact of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Luckily, this magazine is not sealed. It comes in the plastic, but it's already open.
Okay.
But there's going to be some episodes that people will legitimately hate me as I just break the seal.
But it is very cool. I love that you do it because it's very much like a time capsule, right? You look at this magazine and it just takes you're in that era for a brief moment, It's really cool.
Exactly. I should get one of you guys on. We should collaborate, right? Could we collaborate?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a collaboration right now.
Oh my goodness.
We can do more.
No, right. This is content creation, because we're on this thing, which we're not collaborating, because this is the thing that we do. We're talking about the other thing, which we can collaborate based on this. Wow.
Well, before you break your brain, a cast
to the
past.
Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. See you. And Keith, pull out that sword, boy. Keep kicking that ass. Keep kicking that ass, man.
He's healthy.
He's healthy.